Welcome to episode 508 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and have we got a great episode for you? Because today we're talking about insurance and why it matters even when you hope you never have to use it. We tracked down our friend Clay Burtrum at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference at the Payne County Expo Center in Stillwater, and we're going to have him walk through some real-world risks producers are dealing with right now, like market swings, tight margins, weather variability, and how tools like price protection and crop coverage can help keep you bankable when things get sideways. We'll get into the basics of livestock risk protection, what producers misunderstand about these programs, and deadlines and decisions on the crop side that may sneak up on you if you don't plan ahead. And of course, you will always be able to find all the information we talk about on this episode and past episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. But first, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the Dream Team of Dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
This is going to be my ignorance. I share that a lot, right? My ignorance flows throughout this podcast.
Dr. Brian Arnell. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Cropping System Specialist.
I mean, you look at commodity prices right now and you're like, I might have to start getting really inventive with what I do.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Let's kick off our conversation that we had with Clay on February 13th, 2026 at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference in Stillwater. So, without further ado, on to the episode. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Well, we're here again at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference at the Payne County Expo Center, and we've been able to track down Clay Burtrum. This guy has been talking to folks about, insurance of all types of both cattle and crop insurance. And I guess I'll turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're located.
Okay. Yeah, Farm Data Services, management accounting company located here in Stillwater. We've been in the insurance business for over 25 years as well. Started out just doing LRP. You know, that's been around a long time. Livestock Risk Protection. If you haven't heard about that as a cattle producer, you're living under a rock in the last 2 years. And then we're a full-service crop insurance agency, multi-peril, annual forage, pasture, rangeland, and forage. And then drill it down to what Farm Data does. We help do cash flows, management accounting, helping those farmers see their bottom line and what that looks like on paper, not just in December when you're getting ready to do taxes.
Right. Kind of take us through what you've seen in the in the insurance world, that side of it, over the past couple of years, because there have been a lot of ups and downs for producers.
Yeah, let's just roll back and think about the economy in general. Yes. It seems like ag is ahead of the rest of the world. When we see a recession in ag, then the rest of the world tends to follow. And that's kind of where ag has been the last 2 years. And now we really look at what these commodity prices are doing. If you're just a grain operator and that's all you're doing is let's call it a farmer,
right?
You're struggling right now. You better have some oil wells or an off-the-farm income or something bringing you something in, because we're in the 1970s as far as prices, and we're operating in 2026. Unfortunately, that's where we're at, and that's really affecting the cash flow. And so that's why you have to work with a really good agent on the crop insurance side. There's a lot. When I started in this business a long time ago, I thought it was easy. Now it's more complicated. What are all the stackable programs when you just buy multi-peril, ECO, the enhanced coverage, the supplemental coverage? What are all these do? And for me as an insurance salesman, it's really hard to sell those when the guy's not even making any money.
Yeah.
So, keep it to the bottom line. What's the basics? What do you need? And then just that typical understanding of, what did I just buy? How does that work? What are my yields? When do I call him if I have a claim, or those kind of things?
Yeah.
But in the last couple years, LRP, the Livestock Risk Protection Program, if you're a cow-calf stalker feed yard operator, has just really exploded as far as talking about the price protection and the amount of money that the cattle industry is in right now or using. Let's put it that way.
So, Clay, this is This is going to be my ignorance. So I was at I share that a lot. Right? My ignorance flows throughout this podcast. I was at a meeting up in Parsons the other day. I was listening to a local RMA guy coming down talking about it. He was really diving into some of the stuff you could do as price protection on the stalker side. Can you talk about that? It was a very interesting conversation. He's talking about how it's a little bit of I don't know how I put it. Like, there's a lot of opportunity risk, and one of these days there's going to be a huge payout
if this thing fell out of bed. Take for example.
So can you talk about price protection and then that? So
you bet. I'll just use you an example. Last night, guy calls me. He's got 6-weight steers. Going to sell them in May at 900 pounds. We insured that one animal for $3,263. It cost him $82.
Mm-hmm.
That's a break even of just under $3,100 on a whole load.
Yep.
He said, I'm going to protect myself. Personally, I've never sold an animal for over $3,000.
Yeah.
Much less a feeder steer weighing 900 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the margin that these stalker guys, we're still in the margin business, as we heard Dr. Peel talk today from the stalker, the feedlot guy. They're not in the driver's seat of this thing. We're still operating off $400 and $500 margins, and how do we work that and protect that margin with LRP? But Brian, you brought up a good point of, what does this whole program look like, and how do I use it to benefit me? And that's where a lot of cow-calf younger producers get mixed up as, well, I thought you had to have a full load. How does this work? I had a guy call me at Christmas, says, I got 700 unborn I want to do. Okay, yeah. He goes, well, I turned the bull in them. I know they're bred. No. To use unborn LRP, you got to have the, were they preg checked? Did you buy them bred? Where's the validation when it comes to that claim? And that's where I think Farm Data, or we step in, is there's a lot more to it than just selling this product and collecting a commission check.
Yeah, because, you could right now pay that $80 a head and take them in at 900 weight, and the price is actually higher than the current price, which means that premium you took might be it's a protection, right? And so if the price goes up, you didn't need the protection, you still have to pay the claim, but then your margins might be a little bit less. You're protecting yourself from the market falling, correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. I look at it, this is our cattle house.
Yeah.
We all have home insurance or car insurance. We drive down the road. We don't want to go home and our home burn down, or we don't want to wreck our car.
Yeah.
Same thing in the cattle market. Don't let it burn down.
So on the crop side, I hear a lot of guys talk about, I'm going to insure maybe 70% of my crop, 60% of my crop, or 80%, however they feel like. On the livestock side, is that still thought of, that maybe I got 200 head I'm looking at going forward, but I'm only going to put price protection on 60% to help play that? Or is it all or nothing? Or how do you work through somebody to figure that out?
My stalker guys, it's an all or nothing, because I ask them the question of, how comfortable do you feel being self-insured of that? My cow-calf guys, probably a little more, let's do part of the calf crop now, let's spread that risk out. Maybe you've got different calving seasons, or where you can look at that, of where you want to look at that. And you really got to look at the LRP prices to determine what works for you. Am I happy with a $3,000 if I got that today? What is that price compared to, like we just talked about, the $3,200, on a big steer? Where do I feel comfortable? Because the subsidy is a little bit different, and the price that you're going to pay per head.
When you've got somebody that walks in your office for the first time, let's just say it's a cow-calf operator from Payne County, how does that conversation go? What are the first questions you've got to talk through a farm with about learning them to help make decisions?
What's best for what are their goals? What is best for their operation? Where do they see themselves a year from now? Where do they want to be? Keeping yourself bankable. Because unless you're operating off your own cash, or even if it's your own cash, keeping yourself where you can move to another lender or just get renewed the next year. So those are the questions that I start out asking, and then we see if our service can fit you. What can we do for you to help your operation?
Any traps that you see right now that folks are following into, maybe missed opportunities, or because we talk about this in management a lot, that there's just a system of doing things, so you're not taking advantage of something, or you're doing it because it's always been done that way?
Probably the biggest thing in the last couple of years is being aware of all these USDA programs that are out there. We're about to get bridge assistance money. Who's that get paid to? The old adage of put your head in the sand and I'm not going to FSA, the government's the enemy, it should go by the wayside, because they are here to help. They're help to get us through there, and that's money that we have to take advantage of and use. And then the other big thing on the radar, and this is probably in the last 5, is this transitional planning. Even myself, getting older generations, how does that younger generation get in the business that's got sweat equity, that might have 2 or 3 siblings that don't have anything to do with it, and then how's dad going to split this up? What's that look like? And so we help and assist in a lot of that as well.
We've kind of talked about the business side of you, but you're also a Payne County producer. I mean, you raise wheat, graze wheat, but then also run a few head also. Kind of talk about that.
I live it, breathe it. So when I talk about selling LRP, I'm selling it to myself.
Yeah.
The annual forage, the PRF, the crop insurance, all of these different things. I walk it, talk it, breathe it, live it every single day, because that's what I do as well in a business. And then we talked about transition planning, same as me. Where's my operation going to go? What is my exit plan? What does that look like? And we really have to key in on what the cost of our production is. If I asked half this room today, what's the cost of running a cow in this county, I bet you half of them doesn't even know.
Right.
What's it cost you to operate your business? And what is your break even? Because a break even will not keep you in business.
Yeah.
So can you LRPs on those little hairy mini things that you guys have?
You could, but those are more of a pets and a hobby, and I'm just the herd manager for those. But yes, we can LRP Scottish Highlanders, we can LRP belted Galloways, anything that you think you're going to take to market, we'll put an LRP on it.
And if I remember correctly, you guys are now on the 2nd generation of those.
Yes, we've had a couple more calves, and yes, she is building her herd.
Yeah, that's great. Talk to the cropping side of all of the options that are there for the farmer out there that's saying, well, yeah, I do need insurance on my crop. What are some of the options that are out there for?
So some of the biggest pitfalls with crop insurance are they call too late.
Yeah.
You don't know when the dates are when you sign up. Here we are in February.
Right.
Guys are thinking about, I'm going to plant corn, soybeans. They're kind of thinking towards their summer plan. That sales closing in our area is March 15th. Mm-hmm. Whether you're going to plant corn, milo, soybeans, cotton, that's the date you have to have signed up to make those decisions. Do I want 60% coverage, 80% coverage? What coverage do I want? And then the next date is July 15th for your summer crops, when you're going to report those to FSA and working with it. So I kind of live by the adage that crop insurance is not we don't ever get lonely or bored, because we're moving on to the next date. Right now we're getting spring production turned in so that those prices that we get March 1 are adequate with what your production was last year, and knowing what your yields are and what you have to produce, and then how does that affect the bottom line. And then we're going to turn right around, and July 15th is annual forage. If you don't know what that is, that's like insuring your grazing wheat based off rainfall intervals. And then you're right there in wheat harvest. When's the hail deadline? Can I bind it by midnight, or do I have a 2-hour binding with hail? It's going to be difficult this year to make some of those decisions with $4 wheat. What do I do to insure it?
Well, that's what my next question is going to be, is when you, from your seat looking at somebody, how does the conversation differ when you have $4 wheat versus $7 wheat?
It differs big from a 70% to 80%. Are you adding the supplemental coverage, the enhanced coverage option? You're putting those on. It's a big difference. Where the phone call at 8 o'clock says, "Hey, the storm's coming. I need $200 worth of hail coverage on an $7 to $8 wheat crop," versus I'm not even going to back the combine out for a $4 wheat. Yeah. We'll go buy some more $2,500 steers and just graze it out. And just knowing what those options are of how to look at it. How does that affect your cash flow?
So does that lock a producer in who thinks they're going to go, let's say they're looking at insurance, it's going to be a dual purpose, graze and grain, and then it rolls through. It's March 1st, March 15th. It's time to pull, and you're looking at grain price, looking at everything else, and you're just like, I'm just going to leave it on. Does that impact on the insurance side? How does that play off?
Yeah, you need to let your insurance agent know by at least a March 15th short rate date, as we call it, whether you're going to take that crop to harvest or you want an adjustment. Now, an adjustment doesn't mean you leave the cattle out there. You've got to let that crop kind of grow so that appraiser, the adjuster, can look at it and then decide what it's going to do. You got to be able to tell him that, and then be able to observe those options of what it is. It's not just to leave the cattle out there. But March 15th is that date around here, and it seems earlier and earlier. Mm-hmm. You're the expert on some of this, Brian, It seems to be backing up more towards March 10th, March 5th. Yeah. We see that hollow stem. How much longer can I leave the cattle out there? And then things to keep in mind is, okay, now I'm going to short rate the wheat. Now I'm going to go to cotton. Do I have double cropping in my county? Can I do this? And then, next thing you know, you got an uninsured crop that you just put all this money into, and what does that look like?
So I know, a lot of our guidance in the past has been, the farm bills and the farm bill cycles and stuff like that. And we know kind of on the national level how not having a per se farm bill in place and having it locked in the big beautiful bill kind of has, how has that looked on the local level? Any change to business, or is it just business as usual when we don't have the systematic things in place and we're just kind of working on a new set of rules, if you will?
Well, it was just kind of touch and go here before the Big Beautiful Bill. We got 90% of our farm bill asked within the Big Beautiful Bill. We've raised reference prices. We got a continuing resolution for USDA to be funded through next fall. So a lot of what we needed as farmers, we got done in the Big Beautiful Bill. But that still doesn't mean that we don't need a farm bill to stable up these programs and what it is. When we first started talking, we talked about the downgrade of the economy, of the ag economy. Look what we just did to reference prices in the farm bill, and I couldn't quote them to you to be exact. But they are very well aware of issues within the ag economy. We've got the Farmers Bridge Assistance Program coming out later this month. That's now it's a little touchy for me because I'm a grazing guy, and they eliminated all the grazing out of the Farmer Bridge Program, but yet I still have the input costs of a wheat producer. But when you talk about the local level, it's working with that FSA office, knowing what programs are there, knowing what those deadlines are so that you don't miss out on so many of those things.
So what is do you see much, I guess, kind of around this Payne County area is, we get asked all the time about some of these specialty crops and specialty perspectives coming in. Do you deal with that much around this area? We kind of locked into our central basics.
You got mainly cow-calf, wheat, cotton, corn, soybeans around here. There's not a lot of specialty crops grown in the Oklahoma Payne County area where we're at right here. And but there's a lot of opportunity for that, depending on grants and different things that you might want to pursue to look at some of those programs.
So I guess those alternate programs are, you have a grower come to you and they shot in the dark of something new that they just. I mean, you look at commodity prices right now and you're like, I might have to start getting really inventive with what I do. And it's like, it's fine and dandy to do these shot in the darks, but have some sort of protection, maybe not a great protection, but something down there to make sure we don't hit the ground.
Yeah, I mean, we had the hemp program 2 years ago. Everybody was going to go to hemp. Yeah. Good rotation, and now we have no market for it. The insurance deal kind of faded out on it. Kind of a weird deal. 2 years ago, a guy in Wellston called me about insuring tulips. He's going to plant a tulip farm. Okay, that falls under crop insurance if you're in the right area. It just didn't. You can do it in Texas, but we couldn't do it here in Oklahoma. So, guys are looking for different varieties, or what kind of other stuff can I do to supplement, my income.
So you talked a lot about the animals and the livestock, and I'm out of the loop, and I'm probably more ignorant about these stuff than Brian even is.
It's a lot.
Which is a lot. But, we had talks a long time ago about, you have Pasture set up, insuring the pasture as well. Do we still have programs on that? And what What would you tell local folks around this general area about those kind of programs?
So that's the Pasture Rangeland Forage program. Sales closing on that is December 1st. So that's where you're looking at all your different pastures and your rotations. Used to roll this thing back about 15 years ago, I insured all my grass. It's about $1.50 an acre. And now they changed the rules, changed the pricing structure, and now I insure my grass that I put my high input in. My Bermuda grass pastures, the grasses I rotate, my hayland and those, because the premiums have changed a lot. And the way the PRF is set up is you pick intervals where you need it to rain is the best way to think about this. I want it to rain in June and July when I'm growing grass, and then August and September. You got to pick those areas, and we work with a weather resource out of Colorado, Matt Makins, who also is with CattleFax, and work with him to analyze grids to know what is your actual information that you have in your area to look at what that grid is to do it. And like I said earlier, stack those programs. I got them all. You can have NAP with the FSA office, the Non-Insured Assistance Program, annual forage on your wheat, PRF on your grass, LRP on your cattle. You're kind of covering all the bases, and I said earlier, to keep yourself bankable and insured. Now, I may not be your typical insurance agent because I'm not going to sell you the max on everything. I want to look at what works for your operation, what's in your budget to insure your grasses, and what's our overall goal of this.
So is there any sort of protection, I guess, against, okay, so we're normally a 3-cut Bermuda area or something along those lines, but, we've had those springs to where it just rains and it rains and it rains and it rains and it rains, and you end up going with a 2-cut Bermuda, and that first cut just isn't really worth anything. Is there programs out there for that kind of thing to where maybe it's not that it doesn't rain here, it's that it overly rained here, and I missed my window on getting a 3-cut system, and now I'm at a 2-cut with really poor quality across the board?
Not necessarily. The way to mitigate that risk would have spread your program, your policy out throughout a time frame where you're not heavily loaded in the areas when you need it to rain, but you spread that risk out for 20%, say over the 6-month, 5 to 6 month period where your risk is spread to those areas times when you don't get rain. But to answer your direct question, no, there's not a program that says, well, I had 3 cuttings, now I only got 2. How are you going to help me with that program?
That seems to be some years our worst problem is we miss the May, and everything's gone downhill from there because now that first cutting's horrible quality, and it just kind of goes down from there.
You're in a position to have those conversations with policymakers, not only on the state level but in the federal level. What are those conversations like whenever they say how are things going in Payne County? How could we make this more beneficial for producers?
That's just letting them know how it relates back to me and Burtrum Cattle. One, the Farmers Bridge Assistance Program, no money for grazing in that operation. They say cattle guys are too high, they're getting all the money. But at the same time, we had the same exact input costs, or sometimes even more, because we're trying to produce a forage. How can they relate to how that affects me personally, to my bottom line? And it's letting them know, seeing the dry ponds, seeing that I don't have pasture. And the other thing is being able to pick up the phone and talk to those people. I'm headed up there next month, and then again in April is seeing them, making them understand how it relates to the farm families that are here, and it's a way of life that it not only affects me and my business, it affects the feed store, the 5 and dime, the people that live in this community because there was an income produced off that farm.
And that's not just a one time discussion. I mean, it's a continuous.
It's an ongoing. What every single program and how it would affect us. We work real closely with the Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association and National Cattlemen to know how these programs and how can we relate. And unless they can see that and relate that back, then they don't know what it does. Take for example something just kind of out of the way. This deaf issue that they're talking about rolling back on the trucks. Yeah. If you get a tractor that goes down during the middle of harvest, it doesn't go down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It goes down at 8 or 9 o'clock when you can't get a hold of John Deere to come out and fix it, or you have reduced power and all these issues that relate just to something very, the emissions deal. So that's just a minute issue that has caused a lot of big problems, and they have to understand how each and every single program affects us right here.
Being from Oklahoma, I'm sure you have a lot more discussion about natural disasters and just the impact of those on the crops, but then also say more than a producer from Maine or somewhere where there's not such variability in
I
there
mean,
too.
if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in Oklahoma.
Right.
I mean, we could be freezing today and we're sweating tomorrow.
Right.
And a tornado and hail and heck, might as well throw in an earthquake now. I mean, because we're going to get them all in the same day right here. And how does that affect us? What's it do to your whole insurance plans? Or what do I do? Take screwworm right now. Somebody asked me with LRP, what happens if my herd gets quarantined and I can't sell my cattle? Is LRP going to pick that up? Well, LRP will pick it up in the event that the market goes down and you have a claim. Or I lost my whole herd in a wildfire in West Texas last year. How does that affect my insurance policy? Or is there an insurance policy? You had them insured, but it was a price program. What do all those look like when it comes to natural disasters? And how am I going to wake up and survive tomorrow?
Yeah, my uncle had his 7 or 12 cows stand under a tree, and that tree got hit by lightning. They're all dead.
Yep.
And I don't know if he had them insured or not, but I mean, that stuff happens, and that's what you're there for.
Yep, that's right.
Crystal ball.
Okay.
If you had one thing, well, I guess not crystal ball. Reach back in a magic mirror. One program that we used to have that we don't anymore that you could bring back, kind of solve the world's problems. What would you bring back?
Oh gosh, that's a really tricky question. I don't think I'm that old, but I get just the simplicity of buying something and knowing what you have.
Yeah.
Because they've stacked all these programs, they've done all these different things. Nothing is basic anymore to say, hey, here's what I want, show me it. There's too many options to where it makes the average producer, you almost have to have a advanced degree to understand what you have. So I guess to answer that a roundabout way is just the simplicity, of the different programs available.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I've been listening to everything that you've been saying, and I'm thinking he has to dodge this minefield whenever it comes to different programs and everything, and be able to manage through that. So I'm glad to hear you say you would love for it to be simple too.
Yeah, just roll it back. But what are the basics? Because every time somebody makes a change, an insurance company has to rewrite a new program or hire somebody new, or what's this program, look like, and or how does it affect somebody? And what we really need to know is how does it affect your bottom line, there on the ranch.
Yeah. Well, Clay, thank you so much for going on with us. This has been very informative, and anytime you want to come on, just let us know.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Clay.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, leave us a message on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. We would like to thank Clay Burtrum of Farm Data Services for joining us on this episode of the podcast. To find out more information about our guests and any of the resources we discussed today on the podcast. For Dr. Josh Lofton and Dr. Brian Arnell, I am Dave Deacon, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC 2026. And yes, all rights are reserved.